Today on the Dig podcast, I am speaking to the members of the digital team at the Irish Football Association. So what is the Irish Football Association? It's the governing, and I was asking the team before I came on here, just give me the proper line here for what you guys are, the governing body of football in Northern Ireland. This is a pretty big deal to have these guys on. I really wanted them here to speak to you because they've just won 3 Northern Ireland Social Media Awards for In-House Team of the Year, Most Innovative Use of Social Media, and Best Overall Use of Social Media. So as the co-founder of the awards, and I just knew they had to be here to speak to you. It's judged by expert digital panel from all over the world, and they give feedback for these guys, and some of it was Irish FA are clearly experts at building community using social media. So there's that word community again coming through. They use their channel to raise awareness of issues within their community, and they are highly skilled at connecting with their community and posting user-generated content, which results in incredible engagement. So they're definitely people we need to talk to on the Dig podcast. Their mission is to promote, foster and develop football for all in Northern Ireland, and they know that the digital content that they create plays a key role in doing this, whilst creatively supporting all aspects of the organisation. So this podcast, as you know, is all about business, raising awareness of your brand, digital marketing, social media, and the Irish FA Association tick all the boxes for these topics. So I know you're going to learn so much from them today. So guys, it's not often I have 3 people in front of me, and to keep me right and the audience, can you tell us kind of, well, first of all, I know your names, but everyone else doesn't, and what your role is on the digital team?
I'm Andy McComb, I'm Senior Digital Content Producer.
Okay, and John?
I'm John Gillespie, I'm Digital Content Manager.
I'm Ciaran Quinn, I'm a Digital Content Producer.
Okay, so we'll get to hear, it's all very fancy titles, but we'll get to hear as the podcast goes kind of what each of those roles entails and what you guys do within the team. But just so everybody kind of gets an idea of what you're doing, that the people who listen to the podcast are business owners, organisations, brands who want actionable advice on how they can do things better. So that's why I always just dive straight in with all the good stuff. There's a lot of different elements to the organisation, and that must be challenging, like to develop a social media strategy for. I can't even imagine. But I did notice that you clearly laid out like a 5-year strategy, and it's on your website for anybody that wants to have a look at that. But it's all about promoting and fostering football for all. I definitely seen that clear from the start. It was devised, however, based on core values. And we do talk about core values a lot with a lot of the expert speakers that come on here. But can one of you guys, I think it might be John, it's going to talk about this, like how important is core values? Like before we even talk about anything else, whenever you're thinking about social media and strategy and just marketing in general.
Yeah, I mean, the core values of the association, I think there's an acronym, PITCHES. And some of those letters stand for inclusivity, excellence, social responsibility, those type of things. The strategy itself is an organizational wide strategy, which we look to feed off. But promoting, fostering, and developing football for all is the modus operandi of the whole place, and we try to reflect that in our content as much as we can. Right through from little primary school girls kicking a ball for the first time, right through to the guys that play out here on an international match, elite professionals playing on the international stage, and that stretches as well, Caroline, to like disability football, people who have stopped playing football and are coming back to the game in later life just to play the game and participate, and that sense of well-being that it creates as well. So that's massive for us when we're discussing content, trying to keep that as a central thread to almost everything we do. It's not like we articulate that all the time, but it's just part of the fabric of the place. So we know instinctively that if we're going to, say, there's a disability coaching session, we know instinctively that falls under the umbrella of football for all. Anybody can play the game. And there's various forms of the game, and that's really important to us.
So you're talking about, John, and I noticed on LinkedIn you talk a lot about storytelling. So I think that's really, really important that we just talked about core values and what that means. But storytelling, how do we get that out to the people on social? It's through storytelling, right? Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, storytelling's a bit of a broad term, isn't it? People might not know exactly, storytelling's anything really that has a story attached to it. But certainly when you're planning content or producing content like these guys do, it's a big part of it. So and we have to think on our feet quite a lot, particularly on games. Where does the story lie for us in this game? If we lose a match, what's the positive? What's the positive we're looking for? And then away from that, storytelling's really, really important to any video or any written piece you're doing or anything like that. It's actually just we find in social, bringing the human story, the human side of the story to the fore brings so much more bang for your buck. It's like all the emoticons on Facebook point to how people feel, what emotions it draw out of people. So is it a happy story? Is it a sad story? Will it make you laugh? And we try to explore those sort of pillars of emotions in most of the content we do. And we actively plan around some comedic content, and we actively plan around content that will give you all the feels, but yeah, drawing out those human interest stories are always really important, and that has a sort of diverse range for us as well. It could be somebody who's had a really rough time, or it could be somebody who's on top of the world having scored a winning goal in the last minute, as Josh McGuinness did here last month. Yes. But yeah, identifying those key elements within squads, within the organisation, those key people. What's their story? Like, what is their story? Mm-hmm. They're running a project, yeah, but tell us what you do to run this. Try and get under the skin a wee bit more.
And I suppose if people are listening, yes, we're talking about the Irish FA, but that's relevant and should be the way that nearly almost all businesses and brands approach their social, isn't it? We need to feel on social because it is social.
Very much so. Yes. Ciaran beside me here is a Liverpool fan, and we often look at Liverpool's content. Andy won't thank me for that because he's a Man United fan. Okay. But Liverpool's commercial brand content is probably, I would say, best in field that we've seen. They draw out human interest stories and associate it with a particular brand or partner or sponsor. Mm-hmm. So it's not just, doesn't feel like you're selling something to somebody, but there's real value in it. There's real watchability in their story because you can relate to it. And there's several examples from Liverpool as well. And just really teasing out. People are interested in people, Caroline. That's why soap operas in the 80s and 90s were so popular before social media, because people are interested in people, and that's what you see in social as well. People want to be able to relate to things, or they want to be able to aspire to things, and we want the people that we interview and speak to inspire other people, and primarily to play the game of football and participate in the game, but also to come and watch the game and engage as a fan or a supporter at the games. So.
I think if there's nothing taken from the rest of the podcast, which there absolutely will be, that even if people are listening and they take that to think about how people are reacting to their content emotively, is that the right word? Like, to think of the emotions you're creating with the content you put out, and if there's no emotion in it, I would always say don't post it, it's a waste of time. So that's really, really good that you brought that up. But there is a tendency to think, and I've got this written down here, when you hear about an organisation like yours, coming on the podcast, it's all right for them. Like, they have big budgets to do their social media, and I can just hear people saying it because I've said it myself in the past. Like, it's all right for them. I don't have that money to create hard hitting content like that, and to be really innovative. Like, he's one of the most innovative use of social media. But talk to me about that. That's not always the case, is it? Does anybody want to pick that up?
Well, very briefly for me, just when I first came in, I knew sort of straight away I was in with the under 21s, and at the time it made me realise very quickly that it's really it's easy to say, but it's not necessarily about the best equipment. It's about telling the story and touching back on what John was saying, is that great content. You can shoot, it's like all the gear, no idea. That idea of you can have all these cameras, you can have the lighting, you can have this, you can have that. But if you don't have a story to tell and you don't have that genuine connection with either the subject that you're trying to put out there, it doesn't matter. It genuinely doesn't matter. How many times have you seen a film come out and fall flat on its face because people can't relate to it? and people can't get anything from it. And then how many times have you seen a low budget film come out and just completely grab people's attention and hearts and minds? And that's sort of the way I see content as well, is that yes, of course you want to do everything to the best of your ability and to the highest quality. That's not always possible, but it should never be the thing that stops you doing it.
Oh, yes, that's the answer I was hoping you were going to say, because sometimes there is that illusion that the big guys can win, the big guys can have the big impact, but you just confirmed no. You can have all the, I love that, all the gear, no idea. B&L's with us today, and they have all the gear, but they do have an idea, thank God. But yeah, but there is that element to it, and that's so true, Ciaran. And does anybody else want to say anything about that, Andy?
Well, the Irish FA, it's a non-profit organisation. You know, we do obviously put money towards some things, but a lot of the work we do is with the fans, and it's free. We do a lot of work with the players, and your own creativity is free. Like, you don't need to put budget in. Like, the equipment you're filming with today is better than the equipment that we use. You can film on your phone, but if you're not sitting up and putting in those hours, sitting up to 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to win awards, because you need to go that extra mile, and that's what's going to get you an award. So putting in that effort with minimal equipment, you don't need to spend all that money on it. That will get you to where you need to go.
Yes, and we're going to talk later on about user-generated content, and you've just touched on the fact that's free and how that can be your highest engaging content at times. So there is the proof in the pudding later on to back that up. But yeah, I suppose I'm looking at you guys and what you are doing on social, and you're on all the platforms all of the time. And I know my mind be frazzled as an independent business owner doing it, but for such a huge organisation, how do you manage that? I've written down here Andy to kind of touch on this with us. Like, how do you manage that? Or anybody jump in all the platforms all of the time? Is that hard?
It is really hard.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no magic answer that we can say. This is a quick fix that's gonna, solve all your problems. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of dedication. And you need to put time aside, and you need to go beyond your hours that you assign in a day. That's a fact. To be able to touch on every single channel, unless you have a huge team, which we don't, you're gonna need to recycle content. That will be a way of going around it. So, for what I mean by that is, if you're making a long form YouTube video, well, can you get a couple of Instagram reels out of it? Can you get a TikTok out of it? Can you take a couple of clips from it and put it on Facebook and Twitter? That'll save you time, so you're not, exclusively making something for each individual channel. You're making one thing and then chopping it up. So that's a way that you can touch on every channel, and it can be scary, especially when you see the likes of TikTok coming in, and you're like, what even? Another one? Like, can I be bothered? Yeah, just throw yourself in, and the first couple of ones that you'll make will be terrible. The first couple of TikToks we made were probably awful, but I can't even remember what they were. Mm-hmm. So it makes no odds, because you move on from it, and your first 20 won't be as good as your next 20. So just keep going and keep making it, because eventually your practice will get you to where you're going. Such
good tips. And what about scheduling? Are you scheduling people, or are you on the cuff? Like, what tools do you use for that? Or
a little bit. I mean, we schedule sometimes. I think between the three of us, there's definitely a bit of an instinctive, conversation going on about what's going when and what's going where. We do use a couple of scheduling tools. We use Brandwatch,
okay,
and we use the scheduling offering from each of the Twitter, Facebook. We use the internal scheduling stuff sometimes as well.
Okay,
but it's very instinctive between the three of us of what's going on, what's going when, who's working on what. That feels, just going back to what Andy was saying there about the secret sauce for social. There really isn't a secret sauce. You just have to keep you really have to keep on top of it. The social's changing so much every year. I mean, we find every year there's something new to be done, and we're often early adopters of everything that comes. So, or stuff that we think would be really relevant to our audience. So when the day reels come out, I think we posted a reel just to see how it would go. And I can remember texting you that night going, this has serious numbers on it. Obviously the algorithm's wide open at that point, and the Instagram knows what it's doing. It's opening the field a wee bit, and but I mean, if you can go back and say you've got X amount of video views off a reel, then you're quids in, aren't you? So similar to TikTok as well. I think February 2020, Andy and I were coming back from a trip to Spain with the women's team, the senior women's team, and we were literally in the back of a taxi on the way to the airport, and we're just discussing TikTok, going, "Well, what do you think? What do you think?" And I was a bit hesitant, and he was a bit slightly hesitant, but more positive about it than I was.
Yes.
And we decided to be early adopters, and it's now our biggest platform.
Is it your biggest? I was going to ask you about TikTok then. Tell us about that then. Now that we're talking about that topic, we'll just jump to that point. It is your biggest platform then. So what is? Yeah, is this your thing, Andy?
Well, we all dip into TikTok definitely, but I sort of took it under my wing to begin with. We were putting out stuff and it was just flying, because that's just that whenever a new platform comes out, if you can get in early, your engagement will be crazy. But I'd say if you're wanting to get on the TikTok train, you've got probably a year to do it, two at the very, very most, before it really just goes the way of being monetized. You're going to have to pay if you want engagement, sort of like Instagram and Facebook now. So there might be something left out there for people to jump on and still go viral for free. But another year, if you're not on TikTok, you'll have been left behind.
Oh God, that's a good. That everybody's going to be setting up their TikTok accounts now, because people are. It's the thing you said there now, like, oh, here's another platform to hit me with. As business owners, it's so challenging for that to be through at you again. Just when you've navigated Facebook and Instagram, you think you're deadly, and then boom, here's TikTok, and people have stuck their head in the sand a wee bit. I know about it, but it does have an unreal impact, doesn't it? Do you want to talk about the impact?
The good thing about TikTok is you can put anything on it, and anyone can do a TikTok. So it doesn't need to be really polished. If anything, that's probably, you don't want it to be polished, because they're not going to hit those views that you want to get. So if people are sitting at home now going, I don't know how to start this, literally just do anything and put any video out that's about your brand and fire it out there. And it might get 50 views, but it might get 100,000 views, because that's what TikTok does. We've got, 140, 50,000 followers. We could put a video out today and it'll get 2,000 views, and we'll just sweep it under the rug. We'll put one out that we thought wasn't going to do particularly well, and it'll get 200,000. So we're not always reaching the followers that we have. So your followers isn't the be all and end all of TikTok, because someone with 20 followers can have 1 million views. The followers, it's a nice little metric to have, but it really doesn't make a big difference on TikTok. So you can reach so many people with your TikToks across the world. So as a brand, if you're not on it, it's just, well, why wouldn't you be?
I love that. Why wouldn't you be is right. And I think that's a good incentive for people. And like you said, as long as it's about your brand, sticking to your brand values, get the video made and reap the rewards if they're there, and wait to waiting game nearly. But consistency is key, isn't it, for TikTok as well?
Yeah, you need to be consistent. A lot of people will find a niche that they stick to, which I think sometimes can maybe put you in a bit of a pigeonhole, that maybe in 3 years you want to be someone else or try something else, and you'll always be remembered as that niche that you had on TikTok, which for some people is fine, but for us, we try lots of different things. We don't want to be sort of pigeonholed into one specific thing that we do on TikTok. So that would be my advice on it, is be consistent with how often you post, but you don't need to be consistent with what you're posting. Like, try new things. Like, whenever I started the TikTok account with John, we just, on my personal account, I went and followed 100 accounts. So the NBA, MLS, just ran. There wasn't an awful lot of sport accounts at the time, but accounts that do it well, like Ryanair, fantastic on TikTok. Duolingo, they're a fantastic account on TikTok. Gymshark. So just follow lots of accounts that are similar to your brand, or just generally make good TikToks, and watch their videos and just take some ideas from them and think, how can I adapt this to something about my brand? And you don't need to copy it directly, but you can take inspiration from all those and just start putting out videos. And that's how easy it is.
I mean, trends is massive on TikTok. That's one thing that I think that we have done quite well, and that we have been able to sort of like pinpoint what is. I mean, it no sense ridiculous, but the kid that says he like corn, like that, he's like a brand deal with somebody now because he just said that he like. It's like it is that simple. It is genuinely that it is that unpredictable. It is like exponential what can happen from just the most innocuous clip. So as Andy said, it's like you always hear people saying like it's a bit like when I would say like, oh, I'm starting the gym on Monday and I'll do it on Monday. I'm like, well, I'll get round to it. It's like, just do it. Like literally just do it, because there's no downside. It's like if you're not creating content, ultimately like you're not in the sphere to reap any of the rewards. And again, Andy, something that hit home earlier, he's saying like, I can't even tell you the first ones that we put up, because they genuinely fade into the background and you're more focused on your new content. But I think trends has been a big thing for us. We've jumped on a couple of just like silly sounds and all, and it works. Like people are already watching that. TikTok will push that to people. Like make the algorithm your friend. It is very unpredictable, but like give yourself the best chance. If you're like a coffee shop and there's some sort of like food trend, go like just do it. Try and manufacture a way to get a funny TikTok. Maybe it falls on its face, but maybe it gets pushed onto the For You page and you get 500,000 views, and next minute there's people going, I actually go up around there. And that's literally just from something that really doesn't, as you're saying, doesn't take much time. Like it's not, production value is not what it is all about on TikTok. It's just sort of meant to just keep scrolling. It's just there.
You do know you're going to be getting free coffees all over the country now, because you're going to be the one they have to thank for their viral videos. So
the word algorithm though is one that I think that brands should just forget from your dictionary. Okay. Because if you just get stressed, the algorithm to me, like TikTok is like a baby. By the time you figure out what it wants, it'll have changed its mind and it wants something else. So
good analogy.
Don't worry about the algorithm. Just make stuff, and if it's good, and be authentic. If you're just trying to push your product, you don't want to consume that yourself. If you were watching, think about the content that you want to consume. So if you're going to be forcing products down in people's faces, you wouldn't want to watch it. So why would anyone else? So just be authentic, and it'll come naturally.
Be social.
Be social, exactly.
And you like, it's plain to be seen how innovative and how forward thinking you all are. And I've written here, but I think we might have covered it. And I've said use our top of your game when it comes to this. But tell us about some of the innovative ways in which you create content for social media. So we did talk there about, being spontaneous and all of that. But is there anything particular that you guys would consider innovative in the things that you do? Does anybody want to? I've written here, Andy. But absolutely, because we're jumping from topic. I know, we're jumping from topic to topic here, so there's actually no structure to the podcast anymore. We're just winging it. But is anybody want to talk about innovative ways? Because some people don't understand what being innovative means, and you have to be on social to stand out.
I can think of an example.
Okay, go for it.
When Johnny Evans was hitting the 100 caps, our sort of like a bread and butter post that we would do if someone was having a big milestone like that would be to get messages of support from friends and family, teammates, and that type of thing. So for that particular one, we had a lot of help from his wife, Helen Evans. So she sent us a lot of messages from big names, Wayne Rooney, Patrice Evra, Rio Ferdinand, all that. But we don't get those messages unless we have built a relationship with her. So maintaining that relationship with her is actually part of the content making process. But she sends us those videos, and all we do is if we just put out that video of those messages, it's a great video, ticks a box, that's great. And we've done it in the past, and we'll probably do it again. But we know that the likes of the BBC or whoever is going to make the exact same piece of content with other people. So whenever we have this video, we're like, well, how can we level this up? How can we do something slightly different? So instead of just putting that video out, we put Johnny Evans in a room, put it on a big projector, and made him watch the video. And then that became the content as opposed to the content that everyone else is going to do. So you see the emotion in his eyes, where his eyes are starting to well up when he sees his kids on screen. And all of a sudden you've got a piece of content that actually you would watch again. Like you might not watch messages from home, in a year's time, but I would watch that Johnny Evans video again to see him getting emotional and feeling great. about hitting 100 caps. So to answer your question in a long way is
No, on railway, I'm intrigued.
I think just you do things that are your bread and butter that you're always going to have to do, but if you can level them up and just think outside the box with the things that you're going to be doing anyway, then it'll probably do better for you.
I think one even just this is the problem with the word like innovative, where you think it has to be this big grand thing where it has to like completely revolutionize stuff. We started doing walking talks after games, which is literally just walking with the player or manager, and we have found that almost like walking with someone relaxes you. You almost like you forget that you're on camera. You've more of a chat there's a bit more rapport there, and we find that was just such a simple way of changing up what is normally just a face on the screen. Yeah, great game. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, could have scored more. Whatever it was. A walk down the pitch, maybe it gives something a bit more like dynamism to the video. And I think like businesses can do that. I think it's probably you're sitting like scratching your head being like, how can I go? Like, it doesn't have to be. It can just be that tiny little thing that doesn't have to like revolutionize anything. It just has to sort of give you just that little bit of a difference from like your competitors or the people that are posting the same sort of stuff. So it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, that walk and talk stuff, after every football match or sports match, you will see a static camera and a person in front of it and somebody interviewing them.
Yes.
And, unless that person has scored like the winning goal or whatever, unless there's that affinity already there, it's very difficult to get engagement on those type of things on social. That we found anyway, but Ciaran's absolutely right. Those walk and talk kind of style interviews, they really change things up a good bit. And just going back to what Ciaran said there as well about behaviour. I'm a big believer in like I'm a bit older than these guys, just a
You're
wee
what?
bit. I'm a bit older than these guys, just slightly older, but monitoring your own behaviour on social. So our audience goes from say 16 right through to 65, but the bulk of our audience sits at like 34 to 50 guys. Now that's changing because of the success of the women's team. We have a lot more sort of female followers coming through, but so I'm monitoring how I behave on social and looking at like what do I do? How long do I spend on Instagram? How long do I spend on Twitter? Where do I go to for this type of informative information? Where do I go to be entertained? Do I use Facebook now? Not really, but it's still one of our massive audiences. Mm-hmm. So in that sort of way, look at your own behaviour and try and be self-aware on how you monitor social, how you pick things up, because we all know it's like you look at your phone before you go to bed, before you go to sleep, you look at your phone in the morning. There's so much opportunity there for you to become really aware of what time of day to post. Mm-hmm. Little simple things that people talk about in social. What's the 101 of like, do we post at lunchtime? Do we post in the evening?
Well, funny you should say that. I'm obsessed with food on social media. Right? I just love food. I love to eat. I love to see what other people are eating, and I love to hear about new places to eat. And even though I don't follow football, if these were showing me the coolest places that you'll eat after a football game, I'm just thinking of the ways that could be, I'd watch you guys and then maybe I'd become, like intrigued in what you are doing. So I suppose I'm just trying to think of ways where people who are listening can turn it into theirs. So if there's a food, if you think your audience love to watch food, can you bring that into your business to pull them in? Is that what you're kind of saying? Like different kind of concepts to your content that's going to make people watch?
Yeah, I mean, trending content is one thing to look at, but also look at what you're interested in. Yes. And if your customers are like-minded, yes, which they should be. Yes. In any business, if your customers are like-minded, then trying to find that sweet spot of relatability on that score is just absolutely huge. Yes. And instinctively when you have the sweet spot. I go back to early lockdown, and we couldn't meet together, we couldn't do anything. And Ciaran I think he just joined the association, Ciaran, and we were trying to come up with ways of like, how do we relate to our audience? How do we do what we do on a day-to-day basis in this context? And we ran a series of like Zoom calls with Pete's nodding. Like Pete's great. We work with Pete a lot, and it was just the players at home. You know, what are you doing at home? Who's cutting your hair? All that kind of stuff. But we also found tried to explore ways of relating to our fans and how they were feeling, not being able to come and watch football games, which is what they do. And we found a way of producing a video of just highlights, previous highlights that sort of allowed us to go, see, when all this is over, we'll be together again. And it had a real sweet spot with everybody. We scripted it, Andy edited it, and it landed so well, Caroline. Like, it just went across the. I mean, politicians were retweeting it and stuff, and
is that the emotive piece again? Then that's the emotion.
Was it. It's like we will be together again. You know, this won't go on forever. And
when this is all over,
yeah,
is that what you called it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it landed really well.
Yeah, and just John mentioned Andy editing there. Is there any good editing tools that you use if the people are listening for all this content? Because I know it can be a minefield. Any tips?
I know Ciaran's Premiere. I'm Final Cut. But if you don't have editing software, I know CapCut is an app now that, like, a lot of the influencers and stuff that I would know are just using that on their phone, and they're editing as they go, just literally on their phone, quicker than what I can do on a laptop. It's crazy. So they're at an event like this, and they're just taking random clips, as you're probably doing yourself.
I use InShot, but yes, I know the CapCut one as well.
CapCut's another good one on TikTok, by the way. They do lots of tips and tricks on how to make videos for one to follow. But yeah, CapCut is... I've used it off and on because I just like to use different pieces of software. I don't need to use it, but I think it's really easy to use. If you know how to use editing software, it's like a kitchen. You know, you just need to know where the cups are in different pieces of editing software. So.
And it's amazing what a pure person with very little skills in that area can have make an unreal video. Like, I'm not highly skilled, but I can put things together with transitions and all of that, and then you look like you're something really good out of something that was a bit basic at the start. So people should just play around really with those tools.
CapCut on TikTok will literally post you a specific way that you can film a video in a unique way, and you can just relate that straight back to your brand. So they'll tell you exactly how to film it, exactly how to edit it, and then you just go and do it. So just follow them and go and do it.
I think that's as Andy said, like, it really, there's no excuse anymore. Like, they're genuine, you know. But back in the day, like as if it was ages ago, but I remember first starting, I would be on Premiere Pro, and as Andy said, it's a bit of a minefield. You know, you just need to get your bearings up. But YouTube's a thing, Google's a thing. I think my take on like videography and editing at first was like, how do these people do it? And then you realize just because somebody's in a certain position, they don't have all the answers, and you never will. You're never going to learn Premiere Pro inside out. You're never going to learn Final Cut inside out. You will have your processes of doing things. I'm sure if we sat down, all three of us, we were looking at the way I edit, and it would be completely different. So it's like, you will make it work for you, and it'll be, you know, it's like, oh, do you drag that in from up there? Like, with the way mine looks, it's down here, and this is up here, and you will find your own processes, and you'll learn it yourself. So there's no excuse anymore to say like, oh, just because all the information's out there. We live in an era now where everything is at the touch of a button. If I'm trying to export something that's giving me an error sign, within 15 seconds I know there's a YouTube video about that is telling me exactly what it's doing and how. Whereas that wasn't a thing. It was very much like you did have to learn everything inside out. So again, keep saying it. Just do it. Just go and do it, and then you'll look at it maybe in a year's time and go, oh, that was terrible. But you've started. You're already on the process of making yourself better. But yeah, it's everything's out there. You don't even you just go on YouTube.
Most people are self-taught, aren't they? Like
I'd say most people these days are self-taught.
You're never too old to be a student of this type of thing, and you're never too young to be a teacher. Like, you'll find my mate's 12-year-old daughter will tell me more about TikTok than I could tell you. Like, so listen to these people that are using it. Listen to, you know, your sons, daughters, cousins, nieces, whatever. They're using this, and they're using it probably more often than we are. So if they're sitting using TikTok on the sofa on a Sunday, ask them what they're doing and show them how to do it.
I suppose the other thing to add to that is nothing is meaningless. Any content you produce, you may think it's throwaway, but it's all about brand reputation and and building your own reputation and profile. It may not get you, a video may not get you any conversions, but what it does is build brand awareness, brand reputation. Oh, that's that person over there. They do this or they do that. Or that business does this really well. Have you seen their TikTok? It's so funny. Like Andy was talking about Ryanair on TikTok. Just build your own brand awareness with content and.
People get obsessed by the numbers, you say, don't they?
People get obsessed by conversions and how much money does this bring in.
Yes.
And
it's about more than that.
And it's about more than that. Ultimately, these social platforms are advertising platforms.
Yes.
But this is free advertising.
Exactly.
This is top-end stuff.
Well, I know there's obviously the huge element of paid, but the impact that you can have with the organic stuff is cute. Like, to think that that's free is actually mind-blowing. So I think, and you said nothing, you can learn everything. That's why I did the podcast, guys, just because it's free tool for people to listen to, and they're going to go in now and look up CapCut and, start thinking innovatively about their content because of yous. So yous are teaching other people too. So unreal. That's why now I know why I had to have yous on the day, because yous are deadly. So the winning submission, there was a lot of talk on the night of the Northern Ireland Social Media Awards about, and some people actually didn't realise that video we flagged up was your submission to why you should win the Northern Ireland Social Media Awards, and it was phenomenal. And I'm going to put the link to that video in the show notes of this podcast if anyone wants to go on and have a look and see how it's done. So the judges were blown away, as were Niamh and I, as the founders, to have someone like you guys create something like that for the awards. But like, you evidently highlighted why you should win, but why did you decide you needed to make a video? Like, a lot of people just wrote their stuff and sent their wee links of their stuff, which is absolutely brilliant. But I mean, that stood out. Why did you do the video? Does anybody want to answer that?
Well, I think when we work in the world of social media and for a living, we make content. We sort of sitting around looking at each other going, well, why are we writing this down? Why don't we just show it? Like, that's what we do. Like, I'm not an expert in writing. John probably is, but for me, I find it much easier to show what I want to say in a video. So I think we were filming one day with Bernadette Higgins, and I said, well, I've got this wee idea that I'll come in and I'll say I've got this wee idea. And they put a lot of trust in me with that, as we put a lot of trust in each other when we come up with these ridiculous ideas. And they went, yeah, just go with it. And we went back and forth on a bit of a script with it and what we wanted to include. And then we give Bernadette a lot of creative freedom with it as well. And we were recording with her anyway. And that's something I would give advice to as well. Like, if you're going to be filming something, always tell yourself, can I make a TikTok out of this? Can I get them to do a reel? Can I get them to, while they're here, and just chance your arm? Why not? So she's always more than willing to do content for us. She was more than willing to help us with it. And yeah, we just thought it'd be a good idea. We put it together, spent the day sort of just throwing clips over the top of it. And then we were sort of thinking, maybe they won't be happy with us. Maybe they don't want us to send the video.
I think as well.
I got very paranoid about that.
It was probably too. I struggle with that. You don't want to like beat your own drum and be like sort of like, oh, aren't we great? So that was a great idea to have Bernadette be like, listen, get us out of there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure face, it's great and all, but ultimately, like, it's not really about us. Like, it's not. It's about sort of like the content. And having Bernadette do it sort of is a nice way of being able to go like, yeah, look, this is some really nice stuff that we have done without us sitting going like, oh, do you remember we done that? That's great, isn't it? Like, so I think that was a really sort of, it was a better way to sort of like to consume it. And I think hats off to Andy with like sort of, as you said, it was just like very much, it's just like every creative process. It's sort of just, it evolves as it goes on. And I sort of think after we filmed it, it was like, that'll be nice. And
what these guys aren't telling you, Caroline, is that these guys are actually presenters internally here as well. So every month we do for internal comms, we do a video called Team Talk.
Okay.
And these guys are front and center of it. So yeah, it's presenters in the making.
Well, You definitely get all the right, you're saying all the right things to the Dig podcast audience here today. And like that didn't cost much money to make, did it? Or like it seemed to be user generated content, clips from all the stuff you've done, all kind of edited together with a voice.
Fans are like such a huge part of our content.
Yeah.
And it's free. They're here. Well, they come to the games and we try to focus on the fans a lot. But it's a game, whenever I said to think outside the box, that's what we always try and do is we've got this idea, so that's what we're going to start with, but where can we take it? And I always remember this thing I seen years ago of a guy that was filling out an application form, and he's going to be a graphic designer, and he submitted it, he submitted like the wrapping of the label of a can, and he put his CV on the side of the can and did it as an actual label of like a tin of beans or something. And he sent that in to the job, and he got the job because he's created what he's like actually applying for. So that always sticks in my head to be like, how can I do the thing I'm being asked to do, but do it in my own way?
Unreal. Oh my God. I mean, it's going to inspire so many people to think outside the box for award submissions as well. How am I going to get recognised in Spain? Because a lot of the people that entered were absolutely doing unbelievable things, but maybe just didn't get the recognition on the night because their submission wasn't strong enough, and that's just what it boils down to. So that's good for people to know that when they're entering awards as well. Think of the can of, what was it? Can't remember. Can of beans. Tin of beans. Think of the tin of beans. So we're talking about like absolutely could talk to you all day. I want to talk about GIF'S. So some people might need to know what GIF'S are. Let's talk about that and how you've increased brand awareness using GIF'S. Does anybody want to talk about that?
GIF'S is free advertising first and foremost.
Okay.
It's just a free advert sitting, like if you've got to the end of this podcast and you're not already thinking about going and making an account on Giphy, which is where we start, by the way.
And I'm going to link that in the show notes. So is that just Giphy.com?
Giphy.com, I believe,
okay.
yeah. So
okay.
You'll have seen GIFs whenever you're on Instagram or Twitter, WhatsApp, you can send a GIF. So it's basically just creating them, and we create them via old YouTube videos. So once you've made an account on Giphy, you can submit a YouTube link into it, and they cut that into maybe like 100 different clips, depending on how long your YouTube video is. And then I'll just put on like a phrase or a random couple of words or something like that to make it into a generic sort of like, put the word yes on it, because if someone's, going like that, like someone's celebrating, and just put yes on it. So it takes it to the next level of, it doesn't just have to relate to the Northern Ireland national team. It relates to someone's brought you home a Twix and you're really happy about it, and it's on your way, and you're replying with a GIF saying yes, and it just so happens to be Josh McGuinness going like that. So for your brand, I think we've just hit 200 million views on our GIFs. Wow. Which is madness. So they're all fully branded up, our logo's on it. A lot of them, people are wearing the kits in it. And people are just using it, literally to have a conversation with their husband or their wife. And they're just using an advert.
I think it's organic. That's the big thing we were talking about it earlier on. It really is organic. That like we have pushed GIFs, like we don't do. It's because.
So how do people find the GIFs?
They search the Giphy. So if you're in a WhatsApp group and somebody says like, everybody out tonight, and as you said, you're like, type in party, or you type in, and obviously it'll recognize where you are. Oh, so right. It will, if you see something, our GIF could just pop up. Or if you're searching for anything Northern Ireland, like it'll pop up. We can tag them, so you can tag I'm gonna keep going to the coffee shop. Say your coffee shop.
Coffee shops are going to be loving this.
And say like you had.
You're going to open a coffee shop someday, I think.
100%, yeah. And say like you wanted like a GIF, so you can have like a GIF of like a flat white or whatever it is, or somebody and your brand on it. And if that can get picked up enough, and that can be pushed up. As Andy said, it's branded up. You have the free advertising. Say like if there was somebody in the shop, or you got somebody to hold the coffee, or if it's like even just like a silly like coffee time, or like coffee question mark, or whatever it is, that people use them in their stories. The stickers, when you put up a story and we have lots of ones where we'll get a media day with the players, and we'll have them like popping up out of the frame. that takes a bit more work. We would like use After Effects and other things to be able to remove backgrounds, and so it's quite impressive to just have like the sticker of the person standing themselves, but it doesn't always need to be that. It can just literally be a screen grab of your content you've already used. So it's organic, and I think that is what we keep coming back to, is that organic content is always going to trump anything else. It's because people are using it not because it's being like pushed at them. They're using it because I think it's funny. They love Northern Ireland. Whatever it is, it's being used sort of organically, and I think that I mean, was it 200 million?
200 million, yeah.
Like that's
200 million.
not,
Yeah.
yeah.
But people, like anyone can do it. Like if the people that are listening, if you just go up against like a clear background and do a video of yourself clapping and put your logo in the top corner. There's a website called Unscreen, I think it's called.
UN or
UN, yeah, Unscreen, and that will you just submit that clip into it, and it will take the background out of that video for you, and you can export it as a GIF and just upload that directly to Giphy as a sticker. So then
everybody's writing down their notes at the minute when they're listening to this.
So
oh my God, that's brilliant.
So you can make yourself a sticker. So you don't need a fancy green screen and lots of lights. It might look better if you do use that, but if you want to do it today, then just use that. But I mean, the advice I would give for using Giphy that I wish I had have known when I first started it was the tags. So you asked like, how are people going to find this? So whenever Ciaran had mentioned there, people are searching for clapping or something like that. You want to it'll give you an option that you can type in whatever tag you want. So you don't just type clapping, type clap, type clapper, type person clapping, type applause, type ovation, go into detail. And I take it to another level as well, that I'll actually put spelling mistakes into my tags. So because type what you think people are going to be searching for. So like I'll spell the word ceiling wrong because people spell the word ceiling wrong with the INE. And that's just going to give you another couple of hundred views because people have spelled the word wrong. So your tags is something that you should definitely put a lot of thought into.
Is there a limit to the amount of tags you can use?
I think it's about 20.
Okay, so you can let loose.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
How many ways are there to spell the word ceiling?
you'd be surprised. There's no ceiling on that.
Oh, very good, very good.
That's far. That's the first one.
Turns out it's 20.
That's such a good tip though, isn't it? Like, because sometimes when you're writing in, hashtags and you're writing and you wrote it wrong, but still that hashtag has been used so many times because everybody spells it wrong. So
with Giphy, you don't really see your tags unless you really go looking for it. You're not going to see the tags that you've wrote. So you can get away with
doing that.
Right, because on Instagram, you don't want to put a spell mistake in your hashtags.
No.
But on Giphy, you can get away with it. But whenever we first started, I was just doing hashtag Galway, hashtag Northern Ireland, because, life's too short.
Yeah.
And we weren't getting those views. We were maybe on 50 million, maybe, which sounds a lot now. But that took a long time. But whenever I really started using the tags, that's when things exploded.
Oh my God, that's unreal. I'm going to be setting up a Giphy account myself now whenever I get out of here. I do have GIF'S with B&L Production to help me with them, and they're brilliant at that. But for small business owners listening, again, with no budget, it's so reassuring to hear that we can do this. Oh my God, so many. I could talk to you all day, but I want to talk about, before we finish up, collaboration, brand ambassadors, all the things that businesses need to be thinking about now to maximise their reach. John, do you want to talk to us a wee bit about collaborations, first of all?
I mean, we collaborate with a lot of people across the piece, and some of whom we pay to come in and do it. Others, come in and do it for free, and we collaborate with fans. But collaborations are so key, and you can collaborate with literally anybody. So if you know another brand that you would like to collaborate with, it may be, most likely will be a non-competing brand, but go and collaborate with another business in your area. Why? Because you're gonna spread your audience, spread the net a bit further. And we like to use St. Todd, Pete Snowden, Bernadette, Helen Evans, who's a presenter on MUTV in Manchester. There's various other people we've used as well, because they've got an audience of their own. Pete, for example, has a completely different audience to what we have, but Pete's a fan. Pete MCs at all the games. People know who he is. He obviously presenting on Cool FM. Bernadette, on the other side of things, is got her own audience from modelling and her own story, and really encourage people to go and collaborate with whoever you can. And it's such a vital part of social, and you'll see on Instagram that you can collab with people now. And about a year ago, about 6 months ago rather, we were very tentative about collaborating with players and their accounts, but all of a sudden you put that request in, they like what they see, and they collaborate, you're getting a bit of their audience as well. It's a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer. And what about brand ambassadors for the Irish FA as well? How does that look, or what is that like?
I mean, from time to time, different projects that the Irish FA run. One of which springs to mind first and foremost is the Head of the Game, which is like a mental health project. And Keith Gillespie, who played for Man United, Newcastle, and was a Northern Ireland international, is an ambassador for that programme, and speaks so openly about mental health issues and how we, everybody needs to start talking to each other, particularly men. And Keith, we've had videos featuring Keith in there, and the ambassadorial thing is really important as well. If you can get somebody to connect with your project, brand, or piece of video content that's identifiable, then you're on a winner, really.
Absolutely, and it doesn't always have to be I think people start to think about collabs and ambassadors. It has to be someone who is high profile, or it just has to be someone resonates that can be a spokesperson nearly and represent you. Isn't that right?
Exactly. I mean, you could be a small business in a village.
Yeah.
And the village could be, full of little businesses dotted around, and you could be a butcher collaborating with a news agent.
Yes.
Or you could be running a clothes shop and collaborating with coffee shop up the road.
Yes.
Because coffee again.
There you go. Coffee is the running thing.
But literally, if you're out shopping, you are going to go and have a coffee.
Of course.
So finding ways to do that, even on a smaller scale, is really, really important, because it just broadens the audience for you.
I know. Oh my God, I love that. So many opportunities that people are missing out on that hopefully they're starting to think about. Now, I want to talk about women. I'm the only woman sitting here today. Many men's here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But women's football is on the rise, right? You were telling me about it before we came on the podcast. So I was interested to hear about that just before we leave, and how that's happening through social as well.
Yeah. I mean, not many people watching this will feel they've noticed the women's Euros in the summer in some shape or form. Our women's team qualified for the first time, and it's been quite a meteoric rise for them, I have to say. So I think maybe 3 years ago, they were getting 50 people at their games. Level of interest was minimal, both from spectators and on social as well. And I think we normally would have sent one person to their games 3 years ago. Now we send 5, maybe 6 people to the games to cover them. It's been so big. They filled this place against England, not in April. The scale of it has really, really shot through, and I think just not long after Ciaran joined the organisation, we took a conscious decision to really resource the team better and how we cover it. And we, all 3 of us, have been all over Europe with this team, and initially the engagement was just okay, but it started to really, really climb, and women's football is definitely on the map, and these guys have played a big part in that and making it more visible to people. And I think that's something that the girls say a lot in the team. If you can't see it, you can't be it. So we play a bit of a role in that, hopefully.
Of course, huge role.
But they're the role models. They're on the pitch. They're right there, playing the game, and making it attainable, feel attainable to people as well. So it's been pretty huge in terms of the lift it's given us. And as I said earlier, our audience is predominantly male, but they've been exposed to a whole new world in football, and it's been great on that score. they become aware of women's football, and it's the BBC have had a big role to play in this, Sky and all the big broadcasters as well. But we definitely have benefited from it as well.
And you've used, obviously the players' passion has always been there, but you've used social to bring the whole community in on it and get them to see how significant these players are.
A lot of their success, their playoff success for the tournament, happened in the middle of in a lockdown.
Oh right, okay.
And there was one of the games in particular where they qualified, the fans weren't allowed in, so we had to tell that story. And A New Dream, a documentary that was produced prior to the Euros, sort of charted their qualifying campaign. It went down really well, and we're actually working on another sort of long form video about the tournament in the summer, and that's coming out at Christmas time. So
I also think we're spoiled. Our senior women's team are just an absolute joy to work with. Every trip is just there. There's never any issues. They're all more than happy to be on camera, and I think we're self-aware. We know that we're men reporting and sort of showcasing the women's sport. So it's important that we let them tell their story, and we don't tell for them, if you know what I mean. It's their narrative, and I think Andy captured it phenomenally with the edit on A New Dream. We sort of to see the impact of that when we went to Southampton and there was a showing in in the local cinemas, and to see the people. I think there was the kid that said, I think they asked her how much have you watched this, and she's like, I watch it every night before we go to bed. And it's that's, you said that's what you can speak on it. It's probably the biggest thing that you
a highlight of my career.
Yeah,
saying that.
Yeah, and stuff like that is sort of we're lucky because we have the senior women's team, and they're all such great personalities. They're all I mean, they're part-time players as well until recently when they were able to go full-time for the Euros for a bit. But I mean, these are women that are holding down jobs and then going out and they're a professional athlete on the pitch. It takes a lot to do, and I think that we're very aware that we're privileged to be able to tell their story, because when I first joined, this was not the case, but we're only a small part of that. They made a major tournament
They've earned the extra exposure they're getting.
Exactly.
Big time. And as Ciaran said, they're the nicest group of people to work with, which makes our job so much easier. And them performing on the pitch makes our job so much easier. But what they've done for girls in Northern Ireland, we can't even begin to put into our content. We can't do it justice. You won't see it on a social media post. I see it when the girl that lives across the street from me has started kicking a ball up against the wall in her front garden. That's when I'm seeing the impact. So yes, we can do our job and put out as much as we can to support them, but that's what they're doing. They're putting footballs at the feet of girls all across the country.
I know, and they're lucky to have you too, though, because the people, the ripple effect of you just posting that content is reaching so far when it would never have before. So it takes two. So they have the passion, and you guys have the skill to get it out there as well. So I'm going to be following that journey now even more so, because I've got a bit more education this morning on what's going on. So yeah, come on, the women. I'm excited for them. Guys, seriously, we'll have to get you back on the podcast again, maybe in the next series or series after, because we could talk about loads of different elements of social and digital, and such a learning for me this morning as well. But what's the next big thing for Irish FA, for the Northern Ireland Football Association?
The documentary
okay.
that we tried to get in the summer at the tournament, an overview of what happened and how historic an occasion this was, sporting occasion, not only for Northern Ireland, but for those players, as Ciaran talked about. Some of those players have come through 20 years of playing for that team, and with very little limelight. And I think Ashley Hutton retired in the last game. She's been doing it for 20 years, and she was playing in front of a packed out St Mary's Stadium in Southampton against England, and she called it a day after that. But that's what's next, really. One thing to look out for would be a documentary on the women's team. Going further in the next year, our senior men's team have a European qualifying campaign coming up, which we're all very excited about. So that'll bring us across Europe again, but hopefully lots and lots of engagement to come off the back of that, and just continuing to tell the story of football for all in Northern Ireland, and that really is one of the central threads of what we do. Everybody can play football, anybody can participate in the game, anybody can get a ball at their feet, or just really embrace the game of football and everything that it brings and the happiness that it brings people, and that's a big part of our job, that football for all mantra.
Absolutely. And anything with you guys, what are you going to be? You are obviously working on all of this, but is there any new platform? Please don't tell me there's any new platforms you know about that I don't. No, stop. No.
Be real.
Be real.
Be real?
Yeah, Be Real is I'm sort of been experimenting with that, annoying these guys with Be Real these days. It's
don't, please, I can't cope. Please don't tell me.
You take a photo, like everyone in the world gets a notification at the same time to update their Be Real. And you take a photo of what's in front of you and what's behind you. You need it. If it went off now, that would be fantastic. Yeah. I don't know how.
Okay. But
how
you're
much
always,
that's gonna
I suppose,
translate.
looking at what's coming out
You
and
have
seeing
to.
is it fitting with you guys and your brand.
Yeah, I don't think it will in this occasion because it's
Okay.
just something for people to play around with. It's
Yes.
like a scrapbook of your life.
Okay.
But you gotta check it out to know if
Yeah.
it is or not.
Could be the next TikTok. You just don't know. And what about you, Ciaran? Coffee shop, maybe?
Just
What's
getting a
going
wee
on?
coffee shop opened up in the new year. Just that I do a lot of work with sort of the junior teams and that. So we'll have the Victory Shield coming up, which will be going down to cover, and it's more or less there's a lot of really great talent around, a lot of excitement with our younger players, and just trying to tell their stories. And we have a next gen series that hopefully will get started very briefly and get back off the ground. So going over and seeing them in their clubs, we had guys on the bench for Crystal Palace. We have players in and around the Premier League. Connor Bradley was at Liverpool, now known at Bolton and stuff. So it's about telling them stories and really showing that the future's bright. And it's I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good.
Cool. And where can we follow now? The no user on all the platforms. What's the general handle on social?
So we'd like to say at Northern Ireland,
At Northern Ireland. And it's at on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and.
or at Irish FA, which is the association's kind of social platforms.
So at Northern Ireland or at Irish FA, you can follow the crack with the guys here. It's been absolutely unreal to have you on. Please say you will come back in the next few series. And I'm maybe going to get a quick tour of the stadium here if I talk nice to the guys. But thank you so much for being on the Dig podcast, and thank you to everyone for listening. As always, thank you so much for joining me on the Dig podcast. It's my absolute privilege to speak to thousands of you each week. If you want to connect and become part of the Dig community, then follow Dig for Success on social media or sign up to our email list on digforsuccess.com. Until next week, just remember, this is your time.